So today we're going to look a little bit more at Wikimedia Commons and how we can make edits to Commons and also kind of tie in the connections between the different Wikimedia projects we've been looking at, so like Wikidata, and how we can kind of consolidate the links between images that are hosted on Commons, how they're used on Wikipedia, and how they associate with the items that they're related to on Wikidata. So we're going to kind of play around with the links between those projects. So start with the story. So this was my article from last night. This is the article that I wrote. A woman called Helen Maloney. She was an Irish stained glass artist, and she was very active in the 60s and 70s, which was a period in Ireland when an awful lot of churches were being built. No shock there. And an awful lot of them were quite modern in their aesthetic. And one person that she worked with quite a lot of the time was an architect called Leah McCormick. So you can see in the article at the moment, I mean, she's a relatively contemporary figure. She only died in 2011, so I don't have an image for her. And we're going to explore a little bit how it is you can get images of people, places, things onto Wikipedia if you are unable to take a photograph of that thing yourself. So what we're going to explore is maybe we're actually going to look at some of the images of the work that she did with Leah McCormick and the churches that she worked on, and how do we get those images onto Wikipedia, and how do we sort them so they're more findable in the future. So as you can see, I did a full article on her, and there was one image that had been uploaded onto Commons featuring some of her work, which I suppose the origin of which, how this image came to be on Wikipedia, will probably be of interest to kind of how we're going to go about getting more of these images onto Wikipedia. So I have an example of her work, which is definitely better than nothing. But what I found quite surprising is that, so Leah McCormick is broadly seen as a very important, possibly one of the most important Irish architects of the 20th century, and his article it's so-so, to be honest. It's not fantastic. So it's definitely something I'm going to be coming back to improve it. I mean, it's not a stub, but it certainly leaves a lot of unreferenced statements. Stylistically, it doesn't necessarily look or feel right all the time as a Wikipedia article, but quite critically, there's absolutely zero photographs of any of the work that he did. And given that, especially this one here, the Met Éireann building in Glasnevin, that's not a hard building to miss. It's a difficult building to miss, and no doubt there's actually probably a lot of photographs of it on Commons. So at the moment, this is definitely a prime example, a bit like Helen's article, to add an image of his work, especially if we don't have an image of the man himself that we can use. So how do we go about finding images? So say the one that we're going to look at today, which is going to be Burt Church. It's known by various different names, but was selected as Ireland's building of the 20th century, as we can see here, and goes by varying different names, but is definitely seen as kind of one of his seminal works. So that's we can probably add an image of it to this section on awards here. So how do we go about doing that? There's a few different ways that we can do it. I can go straight to Commons and maybe try and search for an image there. Unless what I'm relying on Commons is the image being correctly named. So it actually having a descriptive file name. So having the words Saint Agnes, I believe it's known as, it's the Saint Angus Church, sorry. Sometimes it's known as the Church of Saint Angus, sometimes it's Saint Angus's Church. Here you can see it's also referred as Burt Church or Burt Chapel. So it goes by varying different names. So depending on how the person has named the file, I may or may not find it. So what I have found is that it has a Wikidata item. Here it's referred to as the Church of St. Angus, because that is what it is referred to in the Inventory of Architectural Heritage. That's what it's referred to as its official name. So the Inventory of Architectural Heritage is a database of notable buildings in Ireland, or structures, sorry, sites, generally from 1700 onwards. So national monuments in Ireland predominantly are older than the year 1700. Those are listed in the National Inventory of Architectural Heritage are younger. They're 1700 onwards. So this is a 1960s building, so it is under the NIH. So we can take a look at the record for it. It'll show us some bits. So you can see here it's referred to as the Church of St. Angus. We get probably the parish, Billanoga, the townland, Burt, County Donegal. There are lovely images here, but unfortunately these are not under an open license, so I can't take the images from here to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search. So I'm going to Google Church of St. Angus. Now you can see I'm automatically, well, you may or may not be able to see, there are other churches referred to as the Church of St. Angus, so I'm going to put in Burt here to make sure that I get the Donegal one. So here we're seeing, and this is one of the first things that I'm going to do, and I'm doing it this way to kind of show you the workflow that I use. And also, I suppose, to break down how Wikipedia and other edits on Wikimedia projects are not necessarily particularly linear. You kind of incorporate information as you find it. You don't kind of, I suppose, silo information. I'll come back to that kind of thing. So here we have the ArchiSeek, which is quite a good website. So one of the first things I'm going to do to aid in discoverability in the future is I'm going to actually add some of these alternative names to the Wikidata item. You can see at the moment, if we scroll down right to the bottom, there's no Wikipedia article on any language Wikipedia for this church, and there's no category on commons. So there's no central category for any images on this church. So discoverability is a little bit of an issue at the moment. So I'm going to try and tweak that a little bit. So Burt Chapel is one of the synonyms, so we're going to add that. So we have Burt Chapel. It's also referred to as Burt Church, as well as St. Angus's Church. So that already means that through Google you're probably going to get to this Wikidata item far sooner, and it's not going to rely on you using the exact terminology of Church of St. Angus. It's going to get you here through some of the synonyms of the building's name. If we go back to Liam McCormack, we know that he has a Wikidata item, and another thing that I can do here is that you can actually add the architect. And I'm going to add Liam McCormack. Help if I can spell. Liam McCormack. There we go. And again, I'm fleshing out the record. I'm adding some more detail to it, and fleshing out the connections between Wikidata items. So it's kind of building slowly. But what I really want to do is see if I can find any images of the building that I can use in the Wikipedia article. So how do we do that? I'm going to go back to my Google search, and I'm going to go to images. I'm going to show you two different ways that I kind of look for images that are under Creative Commons license that can be used on Wikipedia. So Google is one of them, and what you do is you go to settings. No, actually go to tools. And under tools you have usage rights. So that means the type of license that's associated with the image. And what I want is labeled for reuse with modification. This means that it's going to be the most permissive Creative Commons license available. So it's not going to have, I'm not interested in ones that have non-commercial restrictions. So what this is allowing me is images that are marked as you're allowed to make derivatives of the image, and that's what I want. That's the license that Commons wants. So I'm going to click that, and now you can see very much contracted the amount of results that I have. I'm down to one page of results. And taking a quick look, some of the URLs are quite familiar. Geograph is a project to take a photograph of all the structures across Ireland and the UK. Also Flickr, obviously a photo depository. Do I see Commons? Strangely enough, I don't. And this is probably to do with the search term that I've used. So I'm only getting images that are referring to it as St. Angus's Church in Burt. What I've done on Commons itself is that I looked up the town of Burt, which is quite satisfying to say. On Burt in Irish. And what we can see is by looking at this category here, so all I did was you go up to the Obviously Burt being a surname muddies the waters a little bit. But say you want to find a category, like on Wikipedia, you put in category : because you don't want a file name, you don't want an individual image, with the search term that you're looking for, you're interested in the category. So I put in category Burt. That'll bring me to this page. It's quite an unusual place name, so that's why it doesn't have County Donegal or anything like that after it. But we can see here that we have a handful of images. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 images of Burt Church. They are quite small. They're not necessarily representative of the church. See this is the main one that comes up in the Google search as being under an open license. And then this is very much the church at a remove. So not necessarily the kind of images that I'm interested in using on Wikipedia. I want very much an image. I mean, this image of the church is getting the closest. So I could just use this image and leave it at that. But say you want a slightly higher quality image. You know, you really want a nice image. So looking here, I've seen there's some images coming up as Flickr. And if I open that, so you can see this is a higher quality image. It's quite a nicely framed photograph of the church at Burt. And if we scroll down, this is actually the same Flickr account from which the image used on Helen Maloney's photograph came from as well. So this has a rights statement which is not all rights reserved. So what this photographer has done, if we see here kind of just under the upload date, we have some rights reserved. And what some rights reserved in this mean is that you have to attribute where you got the photograph from. And that's the difference between public domain, or CC0, which you can take an image, so all of the NASA images, an awful lot of the images produced by American government associations, but equally classical paintings, that kind of thing, they would all be artworks within the public domain. And you can take that image and you can do with it what you like. You don't have to say exactly where you got it from. Creative Commons CC BY, which is what this is, it's a version of it, means that you have to state where you got the image from. So that's what it means by the some rights reserved. It means that you have to say that it is this photographer that took the photograph. You can't just take the photograph and not attribute him, okay? So this is the photograph I want to use. I just think it's just slightly better, okay? So if I go to, so this is the image that's used on Helen Maloney's article. Again, you can see, so Steve Cadman is the photographer. So Steve himself hasn't uploaded the image to Commons. Somebody has imported the image into Commons because he has placed it under a permissive license which allows that. So how do we go about getting an image like that onto Commons? We're satisfied that we can use it because it has an appropriate license, but how do we upload it? So we go to upload file here at the side, and you can see it gives us an option. This option wasn't always here, but it's quite a nice option to have now, which is to share images from Flickr. And it's because there is so many people that now have opened up their collections under a more permissive license. So this happens more often than not. Well, I mean more often than not in that Flickr is one of the image repositories where you're most likely to find images that are under that state the license clearly enough to be imported into Wikipedia. So what we need is just our URL. I'll paste that in there and say get from Flickr. That's working away on that. Excellent. So I'm going to say continue. I'm just going to upload the one for the moment. So St. Angus Burt Chapel, that is coming up as a unique name. As I'm going to add a caption. St. Angus's Church. And then I'm going to say also known as Burt Chapel. It's imported the caption, which is great. I'm going to add church here. It's saying where it is. I'm going to say county. Just me being slightly pedantic. And that's by Liam McCormick. So that's quite nice. It's imported the license for me. Okay. Don't think that's when the photograph was taken. So it's the 14th of September 2008. No, it's 2018, wasn't it? Or was it 2008? No, it's 2008. So just mirrors that feel like a very long time ago. It's all relative, I suppose. Yeah. And now we're on to categories. So what we're going to do in a moment is create a category for this particular church, because one doesn't exist at the moment. You can see that all the images of the church are just under the townland, or the area of Burt, the village of Burt. So I'm going to add Burt as the category for the moment, but we're going to work on that. I'm happy with that. I'm going to publish files. And there we go. We have our image uploaded to Commons, and if we scroll down, we'll get the same. So it points me to the source URL, so where I drew the image in from. The author is ascribed to it, the date that it was uploaded, and the license statement is brought in. You can see that there is an extra layer of review. So an administrator or reviewer will come along to make sure that I have been truthful in my representation of this image being imported over, that there wasn't a glitch here, that I didn't tweak it so that an image that isn't under an open license has appeared on Commons. So there is that little bit of oversight. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add this image. So I'm going to do it using source, because I just find it easier when you're just adding one image simply. So I'm going to go back to my file here. I have used this file on Wikipedia. I'm going to take the thumbnail, copy it, and we said that we would, under awards, we would add this image because this is the church in question. St. Angus's Church. Burt. Now, I'm say added image, and we'll publish that. So if we scroll down now we have a beautiful, representative, well-rounded image of the church in question. So, full marks there, I do say so myself. But ideally, if you want other editors to be able to find like images easily, and also to connect a category of images to Commons, to Wikidata, I want to create a category on Commons for this particular church. So I have found a like category. So this is a category of a similar, well, not awfully similar, but an analogous church in County Donegal. And what I tend to do is I tend to look for a like category, much like with creating an article, and you kind of look for a good exemplar and then you copy from that. So, it helps me to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything in particular. So what do I want this category to be called? So because strictly from what I can tell, the official name of the building is the Church of St. Angus. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the National Inventory of Architectural Heritage as the authority on this, and that's what I'm going to call the category. So I've just opened this category in a new tab just so I can edit. I find this the easiest way to create a category. So we're up in the URL in the navigation bar. So after category colon, I'm going to add in what I want this new category to be called. So it's the Church of St. Angus, Burt, and press enter. And what it does, it says, okay, this page doesn't exist. Do you want to create it? And I'm going to say, yes, I want to create this page. So again, we're back into visual editor. Into source editor. There's no visual editor on Commons. So I'm going to go back to the category that I'm using as an exemplar. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to just copy what's here at the moment and then edit it. So I'm not interested in the description. I'm going to add a description. This navigation bar, this bar up here is produced by a template, this one here, the NIH. So again, we're linking it to the authority on built heritage. And Wikimedians are all about looking to those kind of sources of information. So this is the reg number. So if we go back into my new category, I want to add the reg number for the Church of St. Angus. The default sort, much like on Wikipedia, is how the category is going to appear, how it's going to be clustered, by what word, by what letter it's going to be organized by. So the tendency is to put the place. So we're going to say Bert and Church of St. Angus. So I don't need, because Bundoran has quite a few more buildings ascribed to it, there's more granularity in the categories, which isn't needed for Burt, which is a very small community. So it's a church or a monastery in County Donegal. I don't know what Roman Catholic diocese it's in, it's going to leave that out. It's not Gothic Revival, and it's not a Star of the Sea, but we do know the year it was built. Okay, we have a span of years, so I'm actually going to just go to the right one, and I'm going to leave out so I'm just going to leave it at churches and monasteries in County Donegal. I also have this here, which is the Wikidata info box. So this will actually come up with an error because I need to connect it to the Wikidata item, but I can't connect it until I've created the category. So it's kind of a little bit of a chicken and egg here. So I'm happy with that. Let's say creating category. And obviously this type of category operates in a particular way because it's a physical site. Categories for things, people will operate quite differently. So this is just an example of a place. So I'm going to say publish changes, or publish page. So you can see we have our box pointing towards the record in the NIH, and you can see, as I said, the Wikidata item is coming up as kind of unhappy at the moment. So we can fix that. So we go back to our Wikidata item. I'm going to do two things. On other sites, I'm going to add commons. And this is where I always forget whether or not it wants the category. Yes, it does. So category : Church of St. Angus, Burt. Press enter. That's now linked. But you can also do it this way. We can go here and see commons category. But here, it doesn't want category : And another thing I can do is I can actually add the image to this record. So I'm going to copy the file name for the image that I uploaded. I always forget whether I need file : we will find out. We're going to go add statement. You can see image comes up as a prompt. And you can see we have our Church of St. Angus. I'm going to say publish. So now I've created my category, but it's unpopulated at the moment. If we refresh that, we might get the Wikidata. Yeah, you can see now the info box is working for us. It gives us actually a prompt. So if you find this category and you have images, you can upload directly to this. It'll pre-fill some of those categories for you. The upload media. You can see we're getting the geographic data and the different unique identifiers associated with the building. But I want relevant images to turn up in this image search. So I'm going to go back to, don't need that anymore, so to Burt, and I'm going to open each of the relevant images. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, to the image I just uploaded, and I'm going to, so I no longer need Burt because the category I'm about to add is a subcategory of Burt, so you don't need both. So I'm going to say okay. Save. I'm going to publish those changes. So again, we're just getting our edit summary stating what category I'm removing and what category I'm adding. So that's in there. I'll do the same. There's two different ways you can do it. You can do it the way that I've just shown you, or you can edit the entire page. And what you can see here is we have Burt. So I can add in Church of St. Angus Burt instead. So just say updating. So it's up to you which you find easier to do. I suppose there's one less step perhaps with this one. So I'll do the same again. So rather than Bert. I'm also going to remove churches in Ireland because that's quite a large kind of... The Church of St. Agnes Bert is in a broader category, which is churches and monasteries in County Donegal, which will be part of that large category, which is churches in Ireland. So I've put in a finer grain category there. So updating. Do I have one last one? No, I have more. So again, the category I'm adding is a subcategory of this one, so I don't need that anymore. There are probably other categories that can be added to any of these images, depending on how descriptive you want to be. That's our last one, I think. Oh, that's what I already edited. Now, so here's, I can close that one. Here's the magic. So if we refresh this category I've just created, and there you go. We now have 4 images, all categorized as being of the same church. It's associated with a Wikidata item that has the synonyms by which the church goes. It's got an image associated with it, so if people find the Wikidata item, they can be confident that yes, this is the Burt Chapel that I mean, this is the Church of St. Angus that I mean, not the one in Dublin or anywhere else in the world. I could find additional images of it. It's now associated with the architect. Equally, if you find it through Commons, you can link through to the Wikidata item to the National Inventory of Architectural Heritage. You can be assured that this is indeed a church building. He quite interestingly referred to this as his pagan building, I think. And we have, again, the links outwards, but also the geographical data is represented here as well. And you can see if we go to... I didn't actually add Burt, as that's an oversight. So you can see at the moment, so this category here is one that's automatically created by the use of this template up here. So it is an object from County Donegal recorded in the National Inventory of Architectural Heritage with a known ID number. And it's a church and monastery in County Donegal, but we left out Burt. So it is part of Burt. That was a massive oversight of me. I can't believe that. So if we go back to Burt, you can see we now have our subcategory. So those images have now been shifted, I suppose, one category down into more specific data. And we just have the 2 other images which are just broadly categorized as being from Burt. So I think that's all we're going to do for today. I hope that makes sense. As you can say, using a demo in this way, you can kind of see how perhaps it's a little bit of kind of pick a mix. You know, you're doing a little bit of Wikidata, you're doing a little bit of Wikimedia Commons, you're adding an image to Wikipedia. So it's not necessarily the most, maybe it's just me, the most linear of workflows, but you can kind of see how, as you find the information while it's fresh in your mind, while you're looking at, say, the Inventory of Architectural Heritage, while you're looking at your image search, you can say, okay, before I forget, these are the images, or these are the pieces of information that I'm going to add to the various different records to make sure I'm making it as findable and as useful as possible for search purposes, for information retrieval purposes, and just generally just building and improving on the entries that exist for it at the moment. So on that note, I'm going to put out a rally call for anybody who has any interest in Irish architecture. You can see here that there's a lot of work to be done on this particular article in particular, but also if we go back to Helen Maloney for a moment, she worked with a number of other artists and architects of the 20th century, and you can see we have quite a number of red links here. So Richard Hurley was another incredibly important Irish architect, still no article, Philip Jaffrey. But Art O'Murnaghan was a teacher of many of the 20th century Irish artists, and he's in the Dictionary of Irish Biography, which is why I definitely made him a red link. So he certainly requires an article. And what you'll find is every time you write an article or improve one significantly, you will probably spawn a certain amount of red links. And as discussed before, the importance of this is that when somebody does go ahead, hopefully in the future, and creates the article, say on Richard Hurley or Art Murnaghan, when that link goes blue, these links will automatically go blue as well. So the person who creates the article doesn't have to go through and create those links one by one. It's already going to be intermeshed into the wiki universe that way. So on that note, from a rather summery Dublin, I'm going to say good evening, and hopefully we will talk again soon. Take care. Bye.